These are the images they don't want you to see. Photos taken by astronauts, capturing things NASA would rather keep hidden. The clock is ticking. These leaks might not last long. Get a glimpse of the forbidden truth before they vanish. Classified astronaut photos that might get deleted soon.
The Pluto Slug. Back in January 2016, the New Horizons probe was sending tons of new information back from our little ex-planet, Pluto. The icy plain shows a series of lines, almost like these giant space slugs, dare I say, are slowly moving across the surface of the planet. Check it out. It reminds me of the episode of SpongeBob where the gang, rides a rock across the ocean floor. Maybe Patrick and SpongeBob are delivering a pizza on Pluto, okay? They could be just in the weeds, they could be busy. This icy area of the dwarf planet is called the Sputnik Planum. Scientists believe so far the reason for all these lines is that the planet is breathing in a way. If that sounds creepy, it's because it kind of is. The planet's cooling and heating and it's kind of moving around. But we'll leave some room open for space slugs because, you know what, at this day and age, you never know. I've seen enough Avenger movies, I'm like, could be space worms. Number 9, Mima's moon. A long time ago in a galaxy far, far away. Just kidding, this one's actually really close. It's Saturn, it's right there. Saturn is known for having a plethora of moons. Saturn in total has 82 moons, including this one, Mimas. A moon that looks oddly familiar. Why do I feel like it's gonna just blast us all to smithereens? Why do I feel like that's gonna happen? Is that the Death Star? Is this thing pointing at Earth? Which way is it pointing here? That really matters. Saturn's smallest innermost moon is causing quite the stir here on Earth. About a month ago, researchers discovered that this moon has a bit of a wobble to it, almost like a floating magic 8-ball. Something is sloshing around inside. Its gravitational pull is a little off. It's just grooving around in the solar system, Mima could potentially be housing a liquid ocean. Yep, we got more water in space. It's pretty close too. If that was the case, everything we know about water and ocean life in space would have to be rewritten. Number 8, black hole helix. Imagine peering through a telescope and then you see this. I would throw up right into my telescope. This is a galactic jet. It's shot out of a black hole at the center of the M87 galaxy. It's pretty scary looking. This helix shot out a whopping 8,000 light years. Yeah, it's pretty far. That's so far I can't even fathom how far that is. Like my brain won't allow me to really picture that. This sounds like a threat, really, but I'll remind you that the M87 galaxy is 55 million light years away from us. So we're not gonna get any galactic jet on our hands anytime soon, know what I mean? But just how does something like this happen? Astronomers in New Mexico discovered that this massive jet is caused by a corkscrew-shaped magnetic field. What in the witchcraft? Like what? Like a space undertow made out of gravity. That doesn't sound jarring at all. According to the National Radio Astronomy Observatory, this is the longest magnetic fields ever found in a galactic jet. Which is fine, that's the first time I've heard of that. I'm like, you can take that rain, enjoy it. We're not gonna try and beat you. It's stuff like this where I ask myself why I'm worrying about a phone bill. Humans are so tiny compared to this. It's insane. We don't matter. Hey, number 8, we don't matter. Hit that thumbs up. Number 7, Jupiter's clouds. We've all seen and heard of Jupiter's big red spot. That's just a nightmare in itself. So big, always going, no idea why, can't even think about it. But when NASA's Juno spacecraft passed the Goliath back in 2017, it captured something almost just as interesting, if not more, dare I say. Jupiter's clouds. It feels like you can just put your arm out and touch the silky space sky. It's beautiful, but that's about 20,000 kilometers away. It's also quite scary. This big ball of hydrogen is quite mysterious below these clouds. So far, NASA has found lightning higher up than they ever thought it could go. We've also found constant storms at both the North and South Pole, and winds so powerful that the planet's magnetic fields are literally being moved around. That's how strong the wind is. Your skin would just blow off. You'd be a skeleton just standing there. Beautiful, mysterious, and deadly. We love space on MA10.
Number 6, the Vampire Star. Halloween's over, but the true horror fans know that it lasts all year long. Not just limited to our solar system, the existence of Hammer horror classic monsters has clearly reached the stars, specifically symbiotic stars. See, when two stars are formed in proximity to one another, their mass will draw in the hydrogen from the other star, which will deplete its life, turning it into a white dwarf. From there, the white dwarf will go supernova, annihilating both in the process. What scientists have difficulty explaining is how such celestial entities exist, and worst of all, how some have survived the supernova. It's hypothesized that Betelgeuse, the star, not the ghost, is what's called a cannibal star, and before we observed it, Betelgeuse must have sucked the life out of another star. So why can we still see Betelgeuse today, despite the fact that the other star would have gone nova? Wait, did I say it 3 times? Number 5. The huge LQG. Quasars are extremely supermassive black holes that are surrounded by accretion disks, which then release their generation of a beam as pure radiation. We'll get into that later. Cool. And slightly terrifying, right? Well, the huge LQG is made up of a cluster of 74 quasars. 74. Originally believed to be impossible, this massive cluster of black holes and radiation defies both science and sense just by its existence. The huge LQG has a rough span of 4 billion light years, easily the largest structure in the universe and by far larger than our own. Number 4. The Boots Void. Do you know what's more terrifying than something? Nothing. And the Boots Void is just that. Nothing. A region of space where there is simply nothing. And to be clear, this isn't Barnard 68, the dark nebula that eats light. No. This is just nothing. Several galaxies do surround it, but none exist within its center. There's nothing within the void. There may never have been, and there maybe never will be. Or maybe there's just something keeping everything else out. Number 3. The incoming megacomet. Did you know that every year 17,000 meteorites fall to Earth? Now, most of these just burn up in the atmosphere, usually long before they're visible. The ones that can be seen are the ones that are actually dubbed meteors. But what if a meteor couldn't burn up in the atmosphere? Spotted by the Hubble telescope, the comet Bernstein is currently flying right towards us at around 72,000 miles per hour. 60 miles across, the meteor is roughly half the theorized size of the asteroid responsible for ending the age of the dinosaurs. But nevertheless, this cosmic catastrophe could cause considerable consternation were it to collide with our rock. So, when does it get here? Well, don't bother looking up because it isn't gonna come within like a billion miles of us. Even so, if it changes course, even slightly, we could be looking at a pretty dark future. Number 2. Gamma ray bursts. There's a distinct beauty to black holes, their swirling light collapsing into a mass so dense as to erase light itself. Their byproducts are gamma ray bursts, these streams of light that fire out of what would be visualized as the top and bottom of the black hole. It sort of looks like a gyroscope, only one that, defies physics and erases matter. Well, as it turns out, even the most beautiful parts of this flower can be its deadliest, as gamma ray bursts are explosions of high-intensity radiation that could cook anything in its way in a matter of seconds. So it's a good thing that, stars aren't dying out regularly, and even better that our planet has never been hit by a gamma ray burst before. Oh wait, it actually totally was. Well, the effects wouldn't exactly be, Death Star adjacent. If close enough, the radiation would absolutely be lethal, and close in terms of spatial proximity could be anywhere, honestly. Comforting thought. Number 1. The CMB cold spot. The CMB cold spot was discovered by the Wilkinson Microwave Anisotropy Probe, a device primarily constructed to measure cosmic background radiation and test the theory of the Big Bang. The cold spot was added to a structure that is titled, I'm not joking, the Axis of Evil, a name given to any anomaly that deviates from the Copernican principle. Far larger than the Boots Void, temperatures within the cold spot are around 0.00007 Kelvin. The average in space, of course, is about 2.7 Kelvin. What caused the creation of the cold spot is unknown, but physicist Laura Mersini Houghton claimed that it could be an imprint from a parallel universe.
Starting off this countdown, we have these space monkeys. If you're an animal lover, then this one is gonna break your heart. Before sending humans into space, animals were launched into space to see how space travel would affect them. They typically chose primates for their close relation to humans. Obviously, looking back at that is hella messed up. A number of monkeys sadly passed away from these tests. I mean, the first monkey sent into space died from suffocation. There's photos of him being prepped and getting ready for space, and now looking at those photos, it's just hella disturbing. So now NASA has removed all the photos they have of their test subjects. They don't want people finding out their controversial past. Of course, you can still find these photos online today, but NASA still has tried to cover it up. In our 9th spot, we have the aliens. It seems like NASA and Area 51 might be hiding aliens. What's new? The photo I'm about to share with you is a leaked photo of aliens hidden in Area 51. The photo was taken in the 1980s, and years later someone leaked it online. I don't know about you, but that looks exactly like a space alien to me. and it looks like they're running some sort of tests on them or something. Now of course, people think that this photo is fake. Go ahead, believe whatever. Just know that there are tons of individuals that believe it to be real. Plus it's never been debunked. Take what you want for that. Coming in at number 8, we have the second sun. According to astronomer Paul Cox, there is a second sun in our solar system, and NASA is keeping it a secret. Why would they do that? I don't know, because they can. So Paul discovered this after using his telescope to stare at the planets. He actually live streamed him doing this, and while doing so, he pointed to a black dot, which was Mercury. He said that this was the location of the second sun. He said, and I quote, "You may be asking yourself, what is that large round thing to the right of the sun? Well, that's our second sun. I don't know if you knew that we had a second sun, but there it is. It is normally hidden from view. NASA and other organizations usually hide that stuff away from us." Now, I don't know why NASA would hide this from us, but apparently they are, and there's a second sun out there. In our 7th spot, we have the SpaceX explosion. Back in 2020, a NASA worker leaked video and photographic evidence of a SpaceX explosion. NASA was furious when they found out and sent out a memo to all workers saying that they would be fired if they publicly shared photos and videos from the Space Center again. And then someone leaked that memo. Anyways, NASA was all like, nah, nothing happened, nothing exploded. Then the video surfaced and they're like, oh snap, we're caught. It started when people saw smoke coming over the Space Coast and were like, what's going on over there? And NASA failed to properly explain. But like I said, things got leaked and they were exposed.
Number 6. Greater pumpkin galaxies. Sticking with the Halloween theme, 120 million light years away in the Canis Major constellation, these two galaxies, called NGC 2292 and 2293, have earned a much cooler name, the Greater Pumpkin Galaxies. Because of their orange color and the fact that they look like a jack-o'-lantern, these galaxies doomed to collide in what we will see as slow motion make for a pretty spectacular image. Not to mention that NASA released the photos on Halloween a few years ago. Though it may be a fun Halloween themed image, there is a scary truth about them. They're on track to collide with each other. And as the two galaxies draw closer, they begin to spin around one another and could eventually form one single spiral galaxy. But when that happens, there will be some cosmic consequences. Things smashing into each other at ludicrous speeds and exploding out into the darkness with the force of many nuclear bombs. But we don't actually know what will happen until it does. While some may say it reminds them of the Great Pumpkin, I would say that it looks more like a 100,000 light year across Jack Skellington. Number 5. The face of Mars. This freaky famous photo was taken by the Viking 1 orbiter in 1976 and shows us what is very clearly a face embedded in the surface of Mars. A massive one at that, judging by the scale of what's around it. It very clearly has 2 eyes, a nose, and a mouth. Uncanny, really, especially for being what NASA has called a cosmic coincidence, because with enough time and space, literally anything can happen. When investigated again in 2001 with a better camera, it was not to be seen. Was it just a mound of rocks and dirt that was blown or moved away, or was it something more sinister, watching us from the red planet, not knowing that we were finally looking back? Number 4. Black hole in the Milky Way. Black holes, one of the biggest driving forces in the cosmos. These places of pure darkness were once stars that shone bright in the sky, but when they died, instead of going supernova and exploding into a blast of color and energy, they collapsed in on themselves, creating a singularity so dense that it sucks everything around it in, with a force that nothing can escape, not even light. And while this may sound scary, they are incredibly necessary for our understanding of the universe to function. In fact, there are a few in our galaxy, but the biggest is Sagittarius A, the supermassive black hole at the center of the Milky Way. This is the second image ever captured of a black hole, and it's insane that we've developed the technology to be able to find and photograph them. Sag A sits at the center of our galaxy and is the reason why it spins and has its signature spiral shape. But the scary part is that it is not only spinning our galaxy, but consuming it, adding one more way that our galaxy can meet its demise. Not sure I'd rather that or colliding with another galaxy. Either way, none of us are going to be around to see it. Number 3. Hand of God. This is what's known as a pulsar wind nebula, and what you're seeing is a cloud of material that was ejected from a dying star, captured by X-ray telescopes functioning at different energy levels, lower energy detections appearing in red and green, and higher ones in blue. While we can can explain what this stellar specter is made of, we can't quite figure out why it takes the shape it does. And NASA is still wondering if the pulsar particles are interacting in a specific way to make it look like a hand. When the new readings were taken, the ones appearing blue, they realized that one part of the hand is actually shrinking at a different speed than the rest, implying that the two areas were physically different and making us all wonder what the hand is reaching towards. Number 2, Ghost Nebula. Known formally as SH2-136, really rolls off the tongue. This reflection nebula has some pretty startling shapes appearing within it. A reflection nebula does exactly what you think. It reflects light from nearby stars and galaxies. The energy from stars nearby is not strong enough to ionize the gas of the nebula, but it is enough to illuminate the dust and make it visible to us. Looking at the picture, it's a no-brainer why it's earned its much cooler name, the Ghost Nebula. You can see little figures waving from the edge of the space cloud. They even appear to have horns. I'm not sure what that's about, but I'm here for it. Give me all the spooky space specters. Again, this is just one of those cosmic coincidences that we can't explain, and that if we existed at any other place in the universe, we may not see. So we're pretty lucky, I guess. But let's hope our luck holds out for our final entry. Number 1, roaming black holes. Now, I told you about black holes, those things that suck in and destroy anything that comes near, even light, with no chance to escape. But they are pretty detectable, and we should be able to avoid them since they're such a huge cosmic entity, right? Well, what if I told you that there are many out there that are near impossible to detect? Because they're moving. That's right. Known as roaming black holes, these death spheres fly through our universe, devouring everything in their path. Only detectable by fluctuations in mass and light, they were most likely two black holes that attracted each other, then slingshotted off one another and were flung out into space. But here's the kicker. The Hubble telescope actually detected one closer than anyone would want, in our own Milky Way. While pointed near the center of the galaxy at Sagittarius A, a fluctuation in light and space shows that we may have one of these devouring our galaxy, and we would never see it coming until it was too late. So there you go, one of my, and possibly now one of your fears, roaming black holes. Space is crazy and terrifying. It is absolutely baffling and will never cease to impress me the technology and knowledge we have developed in our time as a species to investigate beyond our own planet, especially since at the end of the day, we're all just monkeys with car keys.
Starting off this list, in our number 10 spot we have the after photo. Many of us have seen the portrait of Edwin Buzz Aldrin on the moon. It's an iconic image and has gone on to become one of the most inspiring images of all time, but what we don't see is the one that came immediately after. Maybe it's an arm, maybe it's a chest or a belly, either way it belongs to the taker of the photo, Neil Armstrong. Even the first people on the moon take accidental photos. I mean, it can't be easy in all of that gear. I can't even make a phone call with gloves on. I can't even imagine being in space, trying to snap a selfie while making history. It's nice to see the clean, polished, inspiring part of history, but it's also nice to sometimes remind ourselves that we are all just humans, and humans are silly. In our number 9 spot today we have the crescent Earth. Less bizarre and more downright artistic and beautiful, truly the only thing that makes this photo bizarre is its lack of popularity, as well as the point of view and how opposite of our own it is. At a first glance it looks like a photo of the night sky as seen from a sort of piece of space technology, and it looks like the photo captures a sweet crescent moon. While this makes a lot of sense, what we're actually seeing is the Earth as it rises and looms over the Apollo 14 lander. That crescent is Earth. We look like that from the moon. It completely makes sense, it's just something I had failed to think about before. If you were to camp out on the far side of the moon, because the moon and Earth are tidally locked, you wouldn't be able to see Earth. But on the near side of the moon, you'd see the Earth all the time, and through the course of about a month, the Earth would also go through phases just like the moon does, but they'd be the direct opposite of the phases people on Earth would be witnessing the moon going through, if that made any sense at all. I can't believe I had never seen this photo before because it truly is stunning. In our number 8 spot today we have the moon. This image shows a series of 3 photographs that are just a few of the hundreds taken by the Apollo astronauts. While there are many interesting photos that were taken by those on the Apollo missions, the vast majority of them are just of the moon as seen from their window. Don't get me wrong, seeing photos of the moon up close and personal is magnificent. It's very cool and it's stunning to look at, but once you see it a few dozen times in photos, perhaps the novelty wears off a bit. Of course, the same can't be said for seeing it actually in real life out of the window next to you though. Until travel to the moon becomes a regular old everyday thing like it's a commute to work, that novelty won't ever wear off, as evidenced by the extremely extensive catalog of close-up moon photos taken by the crew. It honestly is kind of nice to see though. To me, astronauts seem so cool and serious and intelligent, and while all of those things likely are very true, they're also giddy, excited humans who were clearly thrilled to be where they were. It's just humanizing, that's all I'm saying. In our number 7 spot today, we have the end of the roll. This is a photo that was taken on the Apollo 7 mission, and while it was likely meant to be just a stunning photo, thank goodness it wasn't meant to include or document anything exceptionally important because, well, the photo is greatly obscured by the end of the roll tape. This photo is hilarious. It appears to be of Earth, and it looks like the photo would show this beautiful white swirl spanning across the blue planet, a beautiful piece of photography, if it weren't for the rectangle taking up a third of the image, right smack dab in the middle. These people are astronauts, not photographers, and despite that, they managed to take some exceptional photos while on their missions, so I think it's fair to cut them some slack for this one. It's not like their thumb was in the way or something like that.
Number 6. Total eclipse. This total eclipse was not of the heart, but it did occur back in December 2021. Not long ago at all. If you didn't see a total eclipse a few months ago, don't worry, we all missed out. I mean, unless you live in Antarctica, we all missed out on this one. This was hard to catch. For a halfway point, I figured I'd throw in a relatable, nice, yet still haunting feature. This Deep Space Climate Observatory satellite snapped a pic, and honestly, it looks like the poster of Independence Day. This is real and very scary. This massive shadow of the moon just slowly moving across the land, like the Goosebumps intro. God, it's haunting to look at. Dark spot on the move, like something out of Star Wars almost. The next total eclipse will occur April 8th, 2024. This time it'll be in Canada, US, and Mexico. All those places will go dark, so get your flashlights ready. I'm already nervous. Number 5, M64. M64, aka the Evil Eye Galaxy, aka the Sleeping Beauty Galaxy, which is a lot nicer. I think we should call it that from now on, definitely. This one might be the coolest space photos of all time. This looks like an artist made it with CGI. I feel like this is concept art from Interstellar. Oh my gosh. What makes the M64 Galaxy so impressive to look at and worthy enough to throw on this terrifying list is the way that it moves. Ooh, the way it moves is just so... Gas on the inner galaxy rotates in one direction, and the outer layer spins the, well, you guessed it, opposite way. This is odd behavior for a galaxy. Scientists theorize that the Evil Eye Galaxy, Sleeping Beauty Galaxy, is the result of two galaxies crashing into one another. The fascinating thing really is we're looking at something 17 million light years away. So this image of the Evil Eye Galaxy, Sleeping Beauty, is actually from a long time ago, most likely. Mind-bending, right? Space is pretty mind-bending. Also terrifying. That's why the James Webb is such a big deal. We're gonna see very far into our past, theoretically. No one really knows what's gonna happen. He's just gonna look and, oh, dinosaurs. Number 4, gamma bursts. Somebody give Bruce Banner a heads up, because we got a lot of gamma. We have so much gamma. When we look at extinction level events like, say, I don't know, a meteor smashing into the planet, we can bounce back from that. Humans, evidently. I mean, look at us. We're doing lists now. We're like, hey, subscribe, hit that thumbs up. I mean, sure, we lost some dinosaurs along the way, but millions of years later, we're here, we're popping. But when it comes to gamma rays hitting the planet, yeah, we're not so lucky at that point. We can't bounce back from that one. If a gamma ray happened anytime in our past, be it millions of years ago, we still wouldn't be here. Gamma rays happen when stars explode in distant galaxies. See, light and energy then shoots out along with gamma rays, radio waves, neutrinos, just a cosmic cosmo, all that good space stuff, just shook up and then blasted at you. But then these gamma rays would travel light years through space, and if they were to hit Earth, our ozone layer would be toast, just gone forever, just like that. We would be engulfed in chemical smog forever. No bouncing back from that at any point. Or if we did bounce back from it, we'd be lizards or something, you know? We'd be lizard people. Walking around, a bunch of licky dudes, just breathing on people. That'd be okay. Number 3, supernova. For this next one, we'll be looking at Betelgeuse. And no, I don't mean Michael Keaton, although he's pretty scary. I don't want to say it 3 times, I'm keeping count just to be safe. I'm talking about the red giant located in the Orion constellation. It began to dim back in 2019, which is not a great sign. Its decay would be quite noticeable here on Earth. For example, the last time a star went supernova and we were able to observe it, the last time was 1604, and that was the Kepler star. It was beautiful and bright for weeks. Even during the day, we could still see it. All day long, people are like, That's gotta be pretty annoying, huh? Can't wait for that one. But when Betelgeuse finally dims out of existence, you have to wonder if we're far enough to be safe. Which sunscreen is good for solar flares? You know what I'm talking about? Like, I freckle up as is. I'm screwed if this happens. Scientists agree that we need to be much closer for the radiation to actually cause harm, but scientists also tell us quite often about these wandering stars and how black holes will just appear out of nowhere. So who really knows? Betelgeuse. Number 2, the sun. While it's not recommended we stare at it, the sun is pretty beautiful. Living in Canada, we're just now seeing it maybe a little bit, just a tad, fingers crossed. No, not really at all, I guess. It's a terrible idea to look at the sun, especially through a telescope, so we don't recommend that at all. Thankfully, we have photographer Andrew McCarthy to help out. Andrew layered together 150,000 different photos of the sun to create this 300 megapixel image for us to safely look at. I opened this photo on my phone and my phone literally got hot. I was like, wow, this is a great photo. I can actually feel it. It's so nice. Next time you're outside and it's hot, just remember that this scary thing is floating above you. Think of that next time you're getting your tan lines. In order to not go blind or, light any fires in his home, Andrew required a special telescope with numerous filters. So if you're thinking of pointing your phone or telescope at the sun today, just don't do that. It's like the magnifying glass trick with the sun. Yeah, just fires 101. It's all bad. Don't even try. And finally, number 1, James Webb. Our boy James Webb. What's he doing? What's he up to right now? Let's always check out on him. I told you I'd be back with more. While we patiently wait for James Webb to look deeper into our cosmos, I figured I'd leave you on a fun one. Also kind of scary though. Both the James Webb Space Telescope and the European Space Agency's Gaia spacecraft both orbit the Earth and the Sun's Lagrange point 2. So they both drift in between the two space giants, and on February 18th, a month ago, literally, like this was so recent, Gaia actually managed to get an image of James Webb, just hanging out. Now look, I thought deep sea photos were hard to look at and like scary. This is another level. This is scary. Check it out. Around 930,000 miles away, James Webb just sits there and floats. And he waits to take photos of life and just anything. Just a little photographer just floating out there. Very little reflected sunlight came Gaia's way, and Webb therefore appears as a tiny faint speck of light in Gaia's two telescopes without any details visible. That's the official statement on finding James Webb. They're like, well, it was right there. We saw it. It was just little. This spacecraft also isn't meant to be a telescope, in case you're wondering. It has a sky mapper on board, but the Gaia is originally meant to track celestial objects' positions and distances, all that, technical jargon. Imagine James Webb taking a photo back. It would be so HD. It's like 8K, he's like, turn around.
Number 10, zombie star. While the idea of a human coming back to life and hunting for brains is spooky, to me the knowledge that dead stars can do the same, even the eating each other part, is both scary and exciting. This is Tycho, a former white dwarf, which is a star that has, quote, died and gone supernova, exploding into a fantastic show of cosmic energy and matter with the power and brightness of a billion suns. And usually a white dwarf will stay dead, but not in a binary system where there's more than one star at the center. Sometimes these previously deceased stars can come back to life. And they do this by feeding off the energy and material from their neighboring star and powering themselves back up, not unlike a zombie eating somebody's brains. Scientists believe that this may have to do with what they call dark energy as well, which theoretically makes up about 3/4 of our universe, but since we have yet to truly detect or understand it, these zombie stars will remain a mystery. But they look super cool, right? Number 9, alien bones. Captured on August 14th, 2014 by the Curiosity rover, this photo appears to show something on the surface of Mars that could chill you to the bone, a femur on the surface of the red planet. Many conspiracy theorists and alien enthusiasts alike hopped onto this to show it as proof that there was once life on Mars, or even that humans had been there before on some sort of secret mission that went awry. NASA has gone on the record to say that it's not a thigh bone, but just a rock that happened to be shaped that way after erosion from wind or water, which we have proven existed at one point. But come on. If it really was a bone, do you think that they'd tell us? Though I'm inclined to go with the scientists on this one, it would be kinda cool if we had proof of aliens on Mars. If you think there are aliens out there, hit the like and subscribe buttons to help us bring you the most amazing videos on them. Number 8, Eye of Sauron. The Rings of Power just finished its first season as I'm recording this video, and since I still have Tolkien on the brain, this photo of the Fomalhaut system made the cut. A relatively young system at 440 million years old. For comparison, our sun is about 4.5 billion years old. Fomalhaut and its surrounding surrounding disk of space dust have been the subject of a lot of controversy in the astronomical community. The images captured interest scientists not only because they look like they came straight from Mordor, but because of the zombie planet that has been tricky to find. The photos taken show that the dust ring is not centered around the star, but is shifted and elongated into the eye shape, which indicates something of large mass on the outer parts of the system, which scientists believed could be a Saturn-sized planet. Investigations have been conflicting over the past few years, with researchers believing on and off that the planet exists, and with Hubble images being inconclusive, which is why we call it a zombie planet, because it keeps coming back to life in a way amongst researchers. The system may have gotten its strange ring shape from all of the comet activity as well, with over 2,000 comet impacts daily, many of those comets being over 1 kilometer wide. That would definitely kick up a lot of dust, so one does not simply walk into Fomalhaut. Number 7. Sunken. Okay, I threw this one in because it's currently spooky season while I record this, and having a jack-o'-lantern sun on the list couldn't be passed up. In 2014, the Solar Dynamics Observatory captured this creepy photo of the sun smiling right at us, like its features had been carved right out of a pumpkin. Solar flares and activity on the sun can be quite unpredictable, and the fact that it lined up to look like this is pretty cool. I just hope that there isn't some giant alien up there carving into our sun to decorate their intergalactic porch. But if that's the case, what are we gonna dress up Earth as? If Earth had a Halloween costume, what would it be? Let me know in the comments.
Number 6. Mars trees. This looks like moldy bread almost. What in the hell? What are we looking at here? Is this actually a real photo from Mars? Are those trees? There's not a chance here. Matt Damon grew potatoes on Mars in the movie The Martian, but I don't think he can grow any pine trees anytime soon. What you're looking at here is still pretty insane. Due to the evaporation of carbon dioxide frost, dark sand is sliding down the frosted side of the dune, so it makes it look like there's trees on the planet Mars. Sun-heated carbon dioxide ice. That's just, I read that and I go, what? What does that even mean? Where do I start with this? We thought we found a giant alien back in 1976 when NASA's Viking 1 flew by and it looked like a face was in the planet. Remember that? It looks like a Jabberwocky, it's just lying getting a suntan. This one here isn't an optical illusion, it's just weird space science. Number 5. Smooth moon. When we think of moons in the sky, or like how other planets have other moons, we think of them as our own. Just a big ball of cheese in the sky, a big sphere, it's got craters, it's pale, we get it, right? Well, as we've seen so far in this list, some moons can look like the Death Star, and some moons can look like chewed gum, apparently. Saturn's small moon Atlas looks like a UFO. It's not a sphere at all, it literally has the shape of a UFO. How scary is that? NASA's Cassini spacecraft caught this image back in 2017, and it almost looks like two moons have crashed into one another, and then now it has a ring-like edge to it. When new photos came back after discovering this moon way back in 1980, scientists were surprised that this moon is actually really smooth. In 4K, they're like, oh, it's not even the pixels, it's actually really smooth. A smooth moon, you say? Let me take a look here. This little smooth moon in the sky, little pervert. Number 4, dead galaxies. This one sounds scary. Dead galaxies. Guardians of the Dead Galaxy. New research from NASA, including the Hubble Space Telescope, along with the Atacama Large Millimeter Submillimeter Array in northern Chile, they found 6 different dead galaxies in total. They're all like, that's 1, that's 2, and they're like, hey, we found 4, all dead, horrifying. How does this happen? Let's look into it. These dead galaxies had run out of the cold hydrogen needed to make stars, and without the fuel for new stars, these galaxies were basically running on nothing at that point. It's kind of like when your car battery dies, only this is on a cosmic scale. This discovery led us to new questions we didn't even know we had. Like, what led to these galaxies to die anyways? What happened to all the cold gas in them so early on? These 6 galaxies lived fast and hot lives, but we aren't sure what went wrong quite yet. Lead author and assistant professor of astronomy at the University of Massachusetts, Kate Whitaker, she proposed several potential explanations and gave us insight onto the future of the studies, which she said, did a supermassive black hole in the galaxy's center turn on and heat up all the gas? If so, the gas could still be out there, but now it's just cold. We need Thanos to come back and just, start this fire up. Just someone get a Bic lighter and just go and just light it back up. Alas, new life. Is that Thor? Welcome back. Number 3, solar flares. Our lives literally revolve around the sun. It blesses us with life energy, solar rotation, and most importantly, tan lines, obviously. But sometimes she acts up. Sometimes she gets a little cray-cray. Sometimes she gets a little and then she spurts out lava and scares us all. Sometimes she creates these powerful magnetic fields that create sunspots larger than our entire planet. Yep, like I said, she's moody. This creates a stream of radiation. It's called solar wind. Now, normally this is a beautiful event to see. We have many photos of it now. The northern lights happen because of Earth's magnetic field reacting to this specific radiation. Beautiful, but really scary when you think about it. This past October, a large solar flare was spotted, and then 3 days later, it finally hit Earth. The geomagnetic storm reached category G2, which out of 5 is pretty strong, especially when you look at it as a, on a planetary scale. The biggest solar event was back in 1859. It's called the Carrington event. It was strong enough to disrupt telegraph communications, even shocking, literally shocking, some telegraph operators. Like if that happens again, and it's even stronger this time, we're looking at huge power outages on a massive scale. Imagine talking to someone on your iPhone and it blows up. Right in the middle of Avatar 2, boom, blackout. Life as we know it is now meaningless. We're all crying in public. Number 2, the space crab. Is the multiverse collapsing? What is this? The appropriately named Space Crab Nebula was discovered back in 1054. Yeah, way back then, astronomers looked into the sky and saw this new bright star. They saw it during daytime, that's how they knew something was up. What they were observing at the time was a supernova explosion. How spectacular is that? This was when the Crab Nebula was born. It's not too far away either. It's just a mere, 6,500 light years tucked away in the constellation Taurus. If you're a Taurus, you're watching, you're like, oh, no way. I'm a Libra. I'm like, get out of here. What do you know? The image of the space crab here was captured over the course of 3 months. NASA put together 24 exposures captured by, of course, our Hubble. The orange glow we see, those are literally star remains, just large pockets of hydrogen. The interesting part here with the space crab is back in 2005, over the course of 10 Hubble exposures from September to November, these waves can be seen expanding outwards, waves coming from the nebula's pulsar. Space is so scary. We have one moon to worry about here. Meanwhile, all of this is going on in our space neighborhood. I'm terrified. And finally, number 1, mystery wave. More waves coming in hot. Really hot this time around. If you've seen Interstellar, this next one should hit close to home. I'm not a fan of wave pools or waves in general. My stupid head just bobbing around in the ocean, that's peril. That's a nightmare situation. I can't swim too well. I don't know, I'm too lanky. I'm like a piece of seaweed floating around. The largest wave ever seen in the entire solar system, of course I had to save this one for last. On a planet a little closer to the sun, Venus, the pressure in the atmosphere can cause some massive waves. Back in 2015, a Japanese spacecraft zoomed by and caught this phenomena. Usually clouds there will move around 100 meters a second, but these clouds, these massive ripples, stayed in the same place for 4 days. Way above the ground level also. They were just like, huh? And then they got stuck there. Due to a runaway greenhouse effect, temperatures on Venus hit around 460 degrees Celsius. So this wave may have been powerful enough to change the climate for those 4 days. Pretty crazy. I feel like Canada, we get a lot of weather changes, but this is next level. Kicking off the list at number 10, the largest known comet. Comet Bernardelli-Bernstein. What a name right there. Okay, what a find as well, may I add. June 23rd, 2021, so pretty recently, Pedro Bernardinelli was a grad student and researcher. He was originally observing outer solar system objects like trans-Neptunian objects, stuff like that, but thanks to dark matter, he ended up finding this mega comet instead, which is pretty sweet. He's like, sure, I'll take it, let's look into it. So he went to his advisor, a cosmologist named Gary Bernstein, and he told him to look into it. Like to literally look into it. 10 times wider than a typical comet. This thing is huge. Last time it was near our sun was a good 3 million years ago, and now it's back. Well, in 10 years, it'll be close. So get your wishes ready. All you have to do is say the comet's name 3 times fast, and you're set. Good luck. Bernardinelli-Bernstein, Bernardinelli-Bernstein, Bernardinelli-Bernstein. Yes! That's a hard name to say. I was Googling it, and I'm like, oh man, I love your names. Great observation and all, but actually no, that's great. That's a pretty sick name. I would name a comet my last name. McWaters, easy. Number 9, the unicorn. Not to be confused with Unicron, although both are equally scary, I'd say. The unicorn is the closest black hole to Earth. But don't panic, it's not gonna, turn us into spaghetti anytime soon, so we're good. The unicorn gallops 1,500 light years away from Earth. It's far away, and it's also pretty small. It's a tiny black hole, so it's extremely hard to find. That's why telescopes like James Webb will come in handy, so we can identify more of these little guys. Researchers were able to find the unicorn because a near star, a red giant for that matter, had its light shifting towards something. It's always special when you see sunlight just doing this, just melting towards something. You're like, okay, let's take a look. So they named it the unicorn because it's also tucked away in the unicorn constellation, Monoceros. The fact that it's rare also inspired the name, so yeah, it's a win-win. They're like, unicorn? Wait, can we do this? This is perfect. Also, please don't turn us into spaghetti. Thank you so much. Stay away. Number 8, a new star. Our sun is around 4.5 billion years old. Not that there's anything wrong with that, she's still young at heart, but this new star over here, she's hot. This protostar, during its crazy cosmic birth, jets of gas are now whipping through space at impossible speeds, and it's beautiful. Now we get to look at it and go, wow. thumbs up. When this material collides with the matter of the still forming star, what's created is called a Herbig-Barrow object. Hubble captured it and it is glorious. We're gonna get even more beautiful shots once James Webb warms up later on this year. So this is really, you know, it's kind of like nothing. Just wait. Number 7, the Veil Nebula. While most subjects on this list are far away from us, the Veil Nebula you can see with a common pair of binoculars on clear conditions. Today we're going with NASA's Hubble telescope view. They got a pretty good look at this gas giant. What you see here is 5 different layers of ionized gases. This cloud is floating around 2,100 light years away. In order to get a photo of the entire nebula, it would be, well, near impossible. See, the Veil Nebula spans 130 light years wide, which is around 100 times larger than our own solar system. So yeah, binoculars ought to do it. You'll see it somewhere. It's pretty big.
In our number 6 spot today, we have the selfie. The word selfie hasn't been around for that long, but people have been taking them for years. With adjustable views and forward-facing cameras, it's definitely gotten a lot easier, but that didn't stop Apollo 17's Ron Evans from having his hand at them, while of course in space. This photo shows about half of Ron, although it's tough to tell with him decked out in his spacesuit. Apparently he snapped this photo while he was retrieving exposed film from outside of the spacecraft. I think that means he was in the midst of a spacewalk when he snapped this selfie. That is perhaps the most badass selfie of all time. On the way back to Earth near the end of the mission, Evans did a 1 hour and 6 minute long spacewalk, so it's entirely possible that this is exactly where this photo is from. I mean, that would explain the absolute nothingness that can be seen behind him. In our number 5 spot today, we have number 2. When we hear about space missions, we often hear of the grueling work and preparations, or perhaps the science and mathematics that went into the planning, or maybe we're just there for the cool photos and interesting discoveries. But whatever it is, we normally don't hear about, either from reports or the astronaut themselves, is how on Earth they managed to use the facilities while flying through space and living in zero gravity. Well, thanks to Apollo 17, some of the mysteries surrounding it were unveiled, although this photo didn't exactly go viral. The final, for now, mission to the moon had those on board snapping shots of the plastic bags that were filled with their space pee. Also, note the device used to help collect it that is located at the top of the bag. Yeah, that little thing was actually cited as the reason women couldn't serve in the Apollo space program. You're telling me that NASA could figure out how to send people to the moon, but it was too difficult at the time to figure out the female anatomy and how a woman could pee in space? Okay, it's a little suspicious at best. In our number 4 spot today, we have the Mars eclipse. So this is more of a video rather than one single image. Well, actually it's a series of 89 different images that, when strung together, act like a video, but I digress. It was all captured by NASA's Curiosity rover as it showed us insights into what life is like on Mars. So on Earth, we have this weird coincidence that the distance ratio between the Earth and the moon versus the Earth and the sun is almost the same as the size ratio between the moon and the sun. This is why, when the moon passes in front of the sun for a total eclipse, it covers it completely. On other planets, namely Mars, that's not what happens. When one of the moons of Mars passes in front of the sun, it's much smaller and it appears like this. Curiosity was able to observe a ton of these instances, which are called transits, from 2 moons, Phobos and Deimos. It's just really strange to see how things that the average person wouldn't have necessarily thought about are so completely different on other planets. Of course it makes sense and it's perfectly logical, it's just strange to see it right in front of your eyes and really take a second to think about it. In our number 3 spot today, we have the Ceres. This is a series of photographs that were taken on the Apollo 17 mission. The first in the series is another photo that has gone down in history as one of the most iconic. A photo of our beautiful planet as seen from space. I mean, come on, how stunning! We are so lucky to have this as our home. The next photo followed up the last iconic one, and while still interesting, it definitely leaves a little something to be desired. It's a simple photo of a floating engine stage. Still cool, just not as cool as the Earth one. The next photo, however, is when things go a little awry. It appears as though the next photo is someone's failed attempt at photographing the sun. It's so funny. It's just white. No one can see a thing. It's exactly what anyone would do, and I love it. The final photo in the series has whoever took the photos returning back to snap some shots of Earth. I guess they likely didn't realize that the one they already had was better than anyone could have imagined. In our number 2 spot today we have Mimas. This is a photo that my brain can't even begin to comprehend as real. It's a photo of one of Saturn's moons called Mimas. This moon just so happens to have a 130-kilometer wide crater on it that is called Herschel. This is cool and interesting and makes this moon look absolutely fascinating, but this photo caught by the Cassini spacecraft in 2005 really brings it to a whole new level. As the sun lit up the Herschel crater, the spacecraft caught this image where we can actually see the rings of Saturn in the background. Firstly, Saturn has at least 83 moons, so snapping such a gorgeous picture of one isolated one probably isn't the easiest thing in the world, especially for a spacecraft. Secondly, some of the moons are huge. Like, the biggest of them all, Titan, is bigger than the planet Mercury. It's less massive, and I know Mercury isn't a huge planet, but still, that's pretty huge for a moon, but I guess that isn't surprising considering the size of Saturn. The rings of Saturn are mostly comprised of ice particles with smaller amounts of rocky debris and dust, and it's exceptionally interesting to see how they look even when you're up close. This photo probably isn't that bizarre, but it certainly is spectacular. And yes, you're not alone if you're sitting there thinking that this moon looks a heck of a lot like a Death Star. In our number 1 spot today we have Alone. No, this isn't a photo from space thriller Gravity, which stars Sandra Bullock and George Clooney, but if you haven't seen it, it's a great movie and I would highly recommend it. Not necessarily the most scientifically accurate movie, but definitely anxiety-inducing. Anyway, back to the photo. This is actually a photo of NASA astronaut Bruce McCandless in 1984. I have no idea how I hadn't seen this photo ever before, as it clearly shows Bruce just roaming free from the Space Shuttle Challenger. No, obviously it wasn't the one that exploded. I had the same thought. They're different. I looked it up. He was able to do this thanks to a nitrogen-powered jetpack, which was called the Manned Maneuvering Unit, and it actually led to him being the first person to ever do a spacewalk untethered. Quite possibly the coolest and one of the most brave things ever. Like, I'd want to do it so bad, but would I risk the possibility of endlessly floating till I met a horrific death once my supplies ran out? Probably not. Bruce had some interesting things to say about the experience, however, saying, quote, "I was grossly overtrained. I was just anxious to get out there and fly. I felt very comfortable. It got so cold my teeth were chattering and I was shivering, but that was a very minor thing. I'd been told of the quiet vacuum you experience in space, but with 3 radio links saying, 'How's your oxygen holding out? Stay away from the engines,' and 'When's my turn?' It wasn't that peaceful. It was a wonderful feeling, a mix of personal elation and professional pride. It had taken many years to get to that point."
Number 10. The Venus Wave. Spotted by the Akatsuki spacecraft in 2015, a massive wave was observed traveling across the surface of Venus. Stretching for 10,000 kilometers, the wave continued up until Venus's cloud tops, where it suddenly became stationary. It is good to note that the average traveling speed of clouds in Venus' upper atmosphere roughly caps out at about 100 meters per second. The source of the wave is undetermined, with theories being tossed around that it might have been caused by a rogue gravity wave, which itself would have been caused by the displacement of a fluid from its preferred position. As Venus is an extremely volatile planet, and no research craft has survived for longer than a couple of minutes on its surface, these claims are difficult to prove, and the secrets of this blue dot remain hidden beneath its swirling clouds. Number 9. Oumuamua. On October 19th, 2017, an object was sighted from the University of Hawaii. Classified as a comet, the object is thin and flat, or roughly a quarter of a mile long. But more importantly, it was picking up speed. If you don't remember middle school science, an object in motion remains in motion unless acted upon by an object of similar or equal mass. In space, because there is nothing to act upon the object to slow it down, any velocity will be kept until impact. But an increase in velocity doesn't make sense without propellant. So what was moving Oumuamua? Well, the theory goes that it might contain a chunk of solid hydrogen, which was slowly falling off of the object's surface and allowing for an increase in speed. However, studying the comet is completely impossible, as it's the first observed object to fly into our system and then fly back out. So this theory is just kind of unconfirmed, and we may never know where the traveler came from, nor where it did go. Number 8. PSO J318.5-22. Discovered yet again by our friends at the University of Hawaii, PSO J318.5-22 is a rogue planet, floating through space without a star for it to orbit. It's estimated to be roughly the size of Jupiter, but as to where it came from, no one has a clue. Theories about, some hoping that it may have been kicked away from its home star due to a gravitational anomaly, but who can say? None but the rogue planet know. Number 7. The Diamond Planet. Discovered in 2004, Janssen is an exoplanet close to the star Cancri A. Years later, the planet was determined to be a carbon planet, a theoretical type of planet with more carbon than oxygen. As a result of this, it is theorized, due to the method of which diamonds are created, that within Janssen could lie an absolute abundance of diamonds. However, getting to it would be difficult. See, Janssen's proximity to the sun is so small that average temperatures are estimated to be around 17,000 degrees Celsius. So good luck getting close enough to snag some stones. Honestly, the scariest thing to me is that someone might actually try this, for reasons that I doubt even the greatest minds could truly comprehend, beyond, I guess, greed.
In our 6th spot, we have Planet X. So astronomer Paul Cox says that NASA has proof of Planet X. It's a broken planet that is behind the sun that he believes will eventually crash into Earth and wipe out all of humanity. But obviously, NASA doesn't want anyone to know this, which is why they're hiding it from all of us. And I genuinely hope that this isn't true, and that Paul's lying, and that he knows nothing, because that's terrifying. We are now at our 5th and halfway mark with the trees on Mars. A weird shot taken of Mars revealed what looked like dark trees rising from the surface. Like, it straight up looks like trees and shrubs are growing there, which we know isn't possible. So then, what is it? Well, NASA says that it's just an optical illusion and it's not actually trees. But other people think that NASA is trying to already grow things on Mars, or that this is part of an alien structure. Who knows? But NASA's being hella sketchy with this photo. In our 4th spot, we have the lady on Mars. In 2007, people went nuts when the Spirit rover snapped this eerie photo on the planet. It literally looks like a human figure perched on a rock. Now, NASA immediately denied this and said that, it's just a rock. But that didn't stop UFO enthusiasts. They believe that this rock is actually a female figure made by aliens, or that it is an alien. Like, look at that. How can that be a rock? Like, there's fully arms and clothing on it. I'm sorry, I don't believe it. Nice try, NASA. Better luck next time. That's a woman. In our 3rd spot, we have the space guests. A couple of years ago, a Russian cosmonaut aboard the International Space Station noticed 3 unusual lights fly by their craft. Thankfully, they got it on film. The cosmonaut believes that what he saw and captured was indeed a UFO flying by. He said, and I quote, 5 objects appear flying alongside with the same distance. What do you think those are? Meteors, satellites, or ... The lights are in a straight line and apparently were hanging around that area for almost a minute before disappearing. He has no explanation for it besides it being a UFO spacecraft. In our 2nd spot, we have the alien statue. In 2019, NASA accidentally leaked some photos that we shouldn't have been able to see. So they released photos taken by their Mars robot Opportunity. In one of the shots, someone pointed out that there appears to be a dark object near one of Mars's craters. It looks like this object has a long arm, a bulky chest, and 2 leg fragments. One person said, and I quote, "It looks like an actual statue. There seems to be so many anomalous stones on Mars that at some point one must admit that sometimes a rock is an ancient artifact." Whereas others believe that this is an alien's corpse that is decomposing. But what do you think? It certainly looks like an alien to me. And in our number 1 spot today, we have the alien city. So there's a theory out there that aliens do actually actually live on the moon. However, they inhabit the dark side of the moon, aka the side of the moon facing away from us that we can't see. Well, a man named Scott Waring found physical evidence to prove this. He obtained satellite images from the dark side of the moon and saw that the moon has structures that cast shadows. Take a look for yourself. If you zoom into the photos, you can see a bunch of weird objects on the moon's surface. That's not the normal texture of the moon. Those look like structures. So he believes that aliens are for sure on the moon and that NASA has been covering it up for years. Not only that, but the images that NASA chose to share with the public had been altered so that the objects were edited out. And then NASA added fake craters in that location. Why would they do that, huh? That's suspicious. Yeah, that's hella sus.
These astronaut photos were definitely insane. Do you want to see more photographs from history? Click the video now.